Hello, you are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. But again, and I'm going to say for the second time, possibly the third time, you're also listening to the Manticlore Podcast. And I'm here with my good friend Clem.
Hi, everybody.
But I'm also here with my good friend Zakoma13. Hey, Zakoma, how are you doing, buddy?
What's up, Chris and Clem? Doing great. Super excited to talk about this.
Nice. It's the weekend. There's some real enthusiasm. This is excellent. So why are we talking? So this is the sort of follow-up episode to our campaign. So a few weeks ago, we dropped an episode which was us handing over a sort of mini campaign, a 3-game campaign over to the Manticlore Podcast. And this is the follow-up to see really how it went.
Yeah, so we spent, like most of January and a little bit into February, planning and coming together and playing these games and just hearing back from you guys. And we were doing the whole thing where we listen a little, pause, play a game. Okay, what's next? Play a game. Okay, and in the interim, we were, planning and scheming how to take each other down, and it's been a lot of fun.
How did it work as a sort of experience of, listen to the pod, pause it, go and play a game, restart it? How did that all work?
It worked really well. We loved it. It was kind of like I don't know how to compare it. It's not quite like a choose your own adventure book where you flip to the next page, but it was kind of like those interactive shows, I guess, where you can watch a little and then you have a choice and then you pick the choice and then your choices have an impact. Something along those lines. But it was really fun. It was like having a DM that sends you emails saying what happens next in the story.
So if I remember correctly, we were sort of from the perspective of a couple of Rebs scouts, really, who kind of followed the devastation into the destroyed sort of facility or the attacked facility. And Clem, do you want to, as the person that actually wrote the narrative, do you want to sort of just lead us into where we were when the 3 games picked up?
Yeah, sure. So the starting point to all of this really is pretty simple. Is we took the input from you guys that you play Enforcers and Marauders, and then we decided, hey, let's play on Tertia because that's the background for the campaign these days, and it's a cool environment to play in. And so what could be the reasons for both of these factions to fight? And so the thing we came up with was indeed some Rebs monitoring like some Mason Labs facility somewhere, like a factory, and weird buildings that they don't really know what's going on in there, and they're trying to investigate and understand. And they see some marauders, patrols, guarding an area, which is kind of weird. And then suddenly they see some attack happens. Obviously, it's the Enforcers, but the Rebs don't know what Enforcers are. That just swoop in and, kick some butts. I mean, we will hear about what actually happened. And just go kicking in there. Nice.
On both sides.
Nice, yeah. And so that was kind of the starting point to the campaign. Like the rebels narrating the thing so that we can tell whatever story we like. And the 2 factions that you guys play. And the rest is whatever you guys make from it. Obviously, there is kind of a secret plot behind like what is really going on inside this Mason Lab facility. Mm-hmm. And so on and so forth that we can talk about maybe later. Although I think now we can give spoilers, right? It's fine. But yeah, so how did it actually go for game 1? Like the Enforcers, intervention force trying to swoop in and recover secret data from the lab and put it to protection. How did that go?
Yeah. So we had a great time getting together and playing. We tried to take lots of pictures so we could go back and I can write some narrative stuff later, and I've kind of been up on that. I still need to get down things from Game 3, but anybody interested in that, we'll do a future episode on our podcast deep diving into each of our army lores and maybe put it up on Ronnie the Bard Facebook group when it's done. But yeah, each game was super fun, so we were able to play a few games rapid succession is really great for learning some of the rules too. Although there are some things we missed and still got wrong, but all in the game. So game 1. So we did fighting retreat. I love that scenario. It's a really cool concept, having somebody start like in the middle of the board and somebody chasing them. So I really like the scenario. It was a little unfair for the Marauders already, my Enforcer's famous mobility and range. But Ashwalker kept back some of the heavier guys to try and block me from pursuing. But I was able to shoot down his commander turn 1. That really made things difficult for him. Ashwalker was also a bit more eager to fight and retreat than I think maybe would have gone better for him if he sprinted off the table more. He probably would have had me. But the Enforcers were able to catch up and eke out the victory. It was 11-4. But so that was a lot of fun.
So you kicked their butts, technically, huh? That's nice.
Yeah, we kind of overran them. They were able to get a few guys escaping and regroup after that. But we gave them a run for their money. Is pretty good.
But that's exactly what should have happened in terms of the story, let's be honest. I mean, if the Enforcers went in, they planned it, they knew the layout of the lab, etc. If they'd have gone in and the unsuspecting Marauders had kind of stopped their attack, who are these Enforcers? What are they doing wrong? Who are these guys?
Right. I mean, that's kind of what they do. It's kind of their job to just come and hit and punch. And I mean, in terms of gameplay, that's also what they do. Like they get overwhelmed pretty quickly because they just don't have many bodies on the table, and so they really need to pick their battle and choose the fight and win that one. Like have critical, decisive wins, and then keep moving. Otherwise, they get clogged down in tons of bodies and they get in trouble. So definitely.
Yeah. And from playing against Enforcers, it was really I'd never actually played with Enforcers either for or against. And when I was up in Berlin doing this our side of this campaign, I really got that sense from the Enforcers that yes, they're super powerful, but you really have to make them count, and you have to make really smart decisions with them. And once you start to lose them, you really feel it very, very keenly. Which is exactly what you want, right? That's totally thematic. That's exactly right.
It's very thematic. Yeah, we learned some of that ourselves, and I'll get into that a bit more in a minute. Yeah.
So you want to tell us about game 2? Maybe how did you approach it, and how it went and so on.
Mm-hmm. So we chose the lab raid option as opposed to the evacuate option. So I was really nervous about this one because my Enforcers ended up nearly getting shot off the board. So I've never been so close to getting tabled like that, in my months of playing war games. But so I found that jet bikes and motorcycles don't have the vehicle keyword, so they get to search buildings. So I found that at the beginning of the game. I was like, oh, that makes for some fun imagery. But that led to me being really overexcited about my scout units being able to search. So I scouted, sprinted them up, just massive overextension. I overextended a lot in this game. But it kind of paid off. Like the Enforcers did the Council's will. They got to objectives early, and we finished that one in a tie. Technically, but I only had 2 or 3 models left by the end. So there's that. Those leapers, I rolled so many 1s and 2s searching those buildings. And leapers are no joke, even just 2 of them. I love the plague, but that was rough. So very well played by Ashwalker. He really took advantage of the terrain for shooting lanes and biding his time, double teaming targets. Really well played. I was able to slow him down just enough, and the leapers hit him too. Not as much, but that's high. If they were around 6, though, he would have had the entire campus to himself.
Yeah, I mean, mission accomplished with just enough resources, right? That's the kind of the Enforcers' way. They fought to the last man, just accomplishing the Council's will, and they got what they needed in the end. And that's pretty cool.
And I love that from the story perspective as well, of this. They've seen off the Marauders. They've got these kind of light troops who are searching and doing their recon, and then the sci-fi horror stuff just sort of tumbles out and comes after them. That's really cool.
Yeah. Having a third faction on the board was really interesting. led for some PvPvE experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there isn't too much, intelligence to the NPCs, but maybe we could come up with scenarios where there is an actual, more involved way to move them, or maybe you could also direct them or like bait them into your opponent or to achieve a scenario.
Yeah.
I think there are cool stories that you could tell, and also like interesting scenarios to play. Maybe a bit more sophisticated and hard to get right, but for a fun narrative campaign or like a finale type of scenario, maybe there are cool things to explore there.
Yeah. I feel like the Tertia Prime campaign had one of the sites that you could have Night Stalkers on the table, and they had like a code box, like they will move and attack the nearest unit or something like that. I can't remember.
Maybe, I'm not sure. I didn't play actual games for the campaign. Maybe one early on. So I didn't keep track of everything so closely. But that sounds something that they could have added to it.
I do something pretty similar for Antares. And obviously, if you're playing in this kind of, very friendly narrative gaming situation, you can afford to not have watertight rules because you're both being cool about it, right? Neither of you are trying to necessarily, win the game at all costs. But just for Antares, we come up with some very straightforward rules for NPCs. So if they've got a line of sight on something and it's within firing range, they'll shoot at it. If not, then obviously if they're in charge range of something, they'll charge something. If they're a melee unit, if not, they'll shoot at it. If they can't see anything, they might go towards the objective. Sometimes we move them in a random direction, so they kind of scatter, which can actually be super fun. You
can DM them a bit, right? Like if
exactly,
both are really playing a narrative game anyway.
Exactly.
So you can figure out, okay, what makes sense, and then maybe you've decided when you set up the game or like while you're building it, the NPCs have this type of objective, and so then which action should they take to accomplish the action usually is obvious.
That's exactly what I was going to say next, Clem, is that sometimes they're defending their own tower, or they're at a crash site, they've crashed, where maybe they're just, exactly as you say, Clem, they've got their own objective and you just do whatever makes sense for them to accomplish that.
Yeah, so that's going to be next scenarios or campaign stuff for next time or another time, Chris. I'll keep that in mind. But and so, Zach, how did Game 3 go? Like, how did you take it from the Game 2 kind of a draw result into Game 3?
Oh, man. Okay, so taking hold. So this scenario was like the second scenario we played in our practice games a while back. And I overextended then, too, and nearly got tabled then, so I was starting to see a pattern. So I really played the ranges this time, waited and played more patiently, and it really paid off. It also helped that my command dice were way hotter than Game 2. Ashwalker took the building a couple times, but I was able to keep it in range of the operators and the Peacekeeper firing squads, and I just shot his squads out of the building a couple of times, and then turn 4 and 5 started piling on. I just had a bunch of my units ready to just get into the building at the last. And my reactions, like controlled fire, kept his brawler teams from wrecking me like they did the first time around. And the enforcers took it 21-2.
Ouch.
Ouch. Yes.
Yeah. That final scoring scheme is just so different from the progressive scoring that we were used to. And it was fun doing that different style of objective.
Interesting. So presumably after some of their scouts were eaten by, these horrible monsters, I guess the enforcers kind of refocused their forces and redoubled their efforts and there's work to be done, guys. Let's get back together and get back into ass kicking mode. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
they had to regroup a little bit and get some reinforcements, but they had new strats and protocols and ready to get back on it. And they did.
I mean, maybe they received also, additional orders of, hey, by the way, the secret, science results that you extract from the facility, they're critical and must be secret. And so just eliminate, like make sure no one escapes with some infos of what we were doing in this lab. And so, maybe they got a bit more motivated to, ensure no marauders reaches the spaceport or manages to escape the facility in a space vehicle or something. But yeah, no, that's sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And I've also seen pictures of the tables you were using. It was cool to actually see it because it have kind of a visual imagination sometimes, and seeing the table. Oh yeah, no, I see what they were going for, and it must have been a really fun time. So it's cool. Like you got cool terrain at the store or the gaming club or wherever you guys play. It was a nice table.
Yeah, it was nice. They got a lot of different terrain there we can use.
Cool. Yeah,
and
so
go ahead.
No. I was just curious to see. I think where does it go from here, right? Like from the story perspective, how did it impact also your guys' own army stories? Because, well, first of all, I want to do a kind of a disclaimer that the campaign was kind of a separate thing, or maybe a bit more isolated from your actual background for your factions. And so I'm curious to see if you managed to modify this or integrate it in how you think of both of your armies and so on. Like, how did it feel for you guys? Like, was it really an isolated thing, or did you manage to reattach it to your overall arc, like story arc for your armies? If that makes sense.
Yeah, we were able to reattach it. So basically what we had was his Marauders, the Blood Hand, being hired by the Talkion Enclave, right? And there's a corporation that had been found out that they were not doing very ethical or legal practices with their food and water filters and purifiers that they were selling. And so they were in trouble. Their CEOs basically handed off the company to a lesser manager who became CEO all of a sudden and was way out of his depth. He hires some Marauders because they don't have a lot of Marines on their side, and they need some supplies so that they can get out of the core, get out of the area, and get to the frontiers somehow. And so we had an idea for a planet, and so the enforcers basically chased them to that planet, the Laconia that we talked about before on our planets episode in our first crossover. And then you said, well, let's take it to Tertia Prime. It's like, okay, that's perfect because Tertia Prime is a real hotspot right now. Everybody's there. They got a lot of materials. And so we chased them there. And my enforcers are the Taurus Hyades Battalion. And so they chased them there. And then with everything else going on in Tertia, they're being kind of called to separate areas. So it was my little strike force, and all the other strike forces within the battalion are being sent out to handle other threats. They're getting taken out, and we're managing to hold on to the Marauders and prevent them from getting some of the assets, but they're still managing to get a little bit. And it comes down to, okay, you guys almost got wiped out. You have a few reinforcements left. You need to stop them from getting off world, or Talkion Enclave is going to escape. And that was how we ended on game 3. And so we ended with Ashwalker's Marauders. Essentially, the last few of them surrendered, and they said, we will sell out the Talkion Enclave. Don't kill us. And the enforcers just lean in real close. The council already knows everything.
Nice.
Yeah. And so what
cool.
we have planned is he wants to bring the Marauders over to the base world of the Taurus Hyades Battalion, and that's kind of like at least for my strike force, that's like a Bespin-inspired city in gas giant clouds, a gas mining place. And so we will see how we can do that in the future. Maybe some Dead Zone games in the future is where we want to take it, but we got some more ideas on that.
So that's the twin. So we could. So it's the twin brother of the Marauder leader commander that was murdered on Tertia Prime. That wants to enact revenge. like, oh, you killed my brother, and then he goes to their home planet or where they're, located, like their barackments, and try to avenge, the old blood.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Can we talk real quick about some of the things that we learned from our games?
Of course, yeah, that's why we're here. Please.
Yeah, so I learned a lot about not overextending, like you were talking about with the enforcers. Like, they are a bit more elite, and so I can't just run them up the board. I learned better uses for my commands and auras, like the Peacekeeper Captain's aura that gives vicious shooting way to fire was super handy, and just having my operatives near him to take advantage of that. I learned it's way better to have the snipers target chaff. So the snipers, if you take somebody out, the unit gets pinned. So I started out firing at the big guys, and that was not the play. I learned that the brawler claws are crazy good at assault. That was really rough, getting 3 dice per model, and they have a big horde. And the jet bikes and motorcycles,
they can just melt things, can't they? The brawlers.
Oh yeah, they're so good. Just tear through it. The jet bikes and motorcycles not being vehicle keywords, and then target unactivated units with it burns weapons to potentially activate them and shut them down. That was really key in that third game. That really helped me get ahead.
Yeah, that can work. Although you need a nerve test, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, so they have to fail the nerve test. But
if you tried it against nerve 3 enforcer or something, your chances are a bit lower. But yeah, it can make a difference. But definitely, like the enforcer, I've never played with them, but I've played against them. And at first, when you look at the profiles, you're like, oh, what am I going to do against them? Like, they are so good, right? Like, you look at the Peacekeeper profile, and like, okay, like just one of these guys will murder 2 of mine or 3 of mine. And the trick is, yes, but you potentially have 4 guys when he has only 1. And so the whole trick is you really need to pick your battles. And if you overextend, then you just get overrun pretty quickly. And the very interesting playstyle from what I've seen, like in the few games that I've played with enforcers, like against them. And I guess that makes you a better enforcer commander, to get a bit more of a feel for, how they work. Like, what can they actually do on the table?
Picking targets, learning what your things do, being patient. Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Are enforcers considered like a really alpha strikey army?
Well, I'm not sure. I think they can do a lot of different things. But because they are pretty elite, in a way, yes, I think they qualify for Alpha Strike. And for a very long time, I thought Alpha Strike means you need to go quickly, run forward, and strike. This is not what it means. What it means is you need to be the one that picks which battle happens, like which fight happens. And Alpha Strike means you decide where the fight happens, and you're the first one to fight. Yeah, that's the trick.
It doesn't have to be on turns 1 and 2, right, Clem?
It usually has to not be on turn 1 and 2 because you cannot hold the distance. So you need to spend time to position well, get your opponent to maybe overextend or try to catch up with you and so on. And then when you decide or when you see an opening for one weakness somewhere or like a critical position for the scenario, then you decide, this is my moment. Now I go with it and I strike right there, and I will just murder everything there. But then I need to keep moving quickly and never be on the reaction side. Otherwise, you just suffer. That's definitely true. I mean, the Marauders, surprisingly, in Firefight, they are average to elite. Like, they're definitely not a horde army like you might think of 40k orcs with a bunch of bodies on the table. Marauders in Firefight and Warpath are not so much like this. They really are highly trained mercenaries. They're not the superhumans elite force like the enforcers are, but they definitely are really good fighters, like good shots, good fighters. And to some extent, you kind of have to have a similar strategy with the Marauders. You can't just overwhelm with lots of bodies. when you're against enforcers, you still have more bodies on the table. But so to me, it is an interesting take on the classical, trope of what are orcs in sci-fi, because Marauder are definitely their own thing, and the playstyle that goes along with it is also slightly different from what you might expect if you come straight out of 40k. But
it was a smart thing to do as well, because you can't really replicate the sort of silly, because the orcs in 40k are almost like, comic relief, whereas really it'd be extremely nasty, but it's, for whatever reason, it's played kind of slightly comically, which I've always thought was a bit weird. And I think that was probably something of 20, 30 years ago, people thinking that was amusing. But I think Mantic have absolutely done the right thing to kind of reinvent what an orc means in this kind of situation.
I can't believe I wasn't the first one to make a 40k reference this podcast.
Well, we had to open the door for you, but now the door is open.
Let's talk about the Marauders. So Ashwalker is not with us right now, but we did talk about things he learned after our games. So he found some better uses for the stunt bot as like the term is a distraction carnifex, a big thing that you can't really ignore, but if you focus too hard on, it can really absorb a lot of firepower. So that was really useful. And then he needed to learn to play the scenarios a bit more, focus on gaining the victory points for the victory. He's awesome at kill. He's really good at kill, but playing the scenarios can get a bit dicey for the Marauders. And
well,
then,
actually, you've kind of got to build your list around that as well, right? I mean, you've got, for example, 2 blocks of 10 brawlers, for example, whose job is to run up the table and murder everything. That's really, really powerful. But you also need maybe a group of 5 guys with rifles just to sit on a point,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he also said terrain can make or break the Marauders' assault themes, like we talked about. He found out when we had really dense terrain, it was hard for them to get that charge, things like that. And then the Ripper and Rainmaker suits and the Hulk were just really great at being mobile artillery. They can really take a hit and have a lot of range and firepower.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's true that they have good options, but you really need, again, like every army, you need to understand what they can actually do and maybe adjust a bit your list, but also to begin with the way you play them. That's definitely true. Yeah. And I think for me that was also kind of the experience when I started playing Mantic Games, is the realizing that sure, you still try to kill some units, but that's not really how you win the game. And the scenario actually is the prevailing thing. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily the mindset of new players to Mantic Games. And so I've seen even like veteran players, like veteran Games Workshop Games players, come and play a Mantic game, and they have this type of reaction where they still go for kill, because that's how you win in the good old 40k or the good old fantasy battle. That was the thing, and it's definitely not the case in Kings of War or in Firefight. So yeah, it takes a different approach to what do you do on the table, but that makes it interesting, I think.
Yeah, and some of the things we learned together, like I think I'd like to make a little note card of like reminders or something. It can be a bit overwhelming to keep track of everything, and flipping through the book slows games down. I felt bad because we would discuss things to remember about command points and units and scenario and stuff, and then we would get playing and the adrenaline is going, we're having a good time, and we inevitably forget stuff. But then I would remember things at really inconvenient times for Ash. I wasn't trying to cheat. Nobody has fun when people try to do that, but in my head there's a blender trying to pop out ideas for how to get advantages and remember, units in buildings end on Overwatch. Units that lose assaults are also activated, stuff like that. I also forgot to reroll assaults for the Leapers because they got Frenzy, but remembered on Ash's turn. It was a bit too convenient for me. The fair thing to do might have been keep playing without those rules, but Ashwalker is a really good sport. He agreed that if we play the game wrong, It doesn't help us to learn, right? So sorry, Ash. We ended up getting win and win, but if I hadn't played with so many inconveniently timed memories, I think Ash would have had me.
I mean, ultimately, it takes a while to play the rules really correctly, or like just be very fluent with them. Usually, I try to not stress out too much about it and just focus on the ongoing game. But that's also because I play too many games, and so I have to make a strategic choice of, okay, I will get some rules wrong, and just go ahead with it. I think if you guys are more focused on, Firefight and wanting to learn it properly, I think you did the right thing to, realize, oh, we've played this wrong. Let's correct our mistake and start doing it right from now on, even though it makes kind of a difference in terms of fairness between the players because we've done it differently up until now. But if you keep doing it the wrong way, then suddenly that's the way you know how to do it. So I think it was the right decision. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I'd suggest is if you're in that situation, now you've played the games, just reread the rules and your profiles.
Yeah.
And next time you play, a lot more will stick.
For sure. And I would remind him of things too that like he could do. We were both encouraging each other on dice rolls. We'd give fair warnings about reactions and stuff. We have a really good rivalry whenever we come together to play, and we've both thought about stuff and have like this new thing we want to try, and we learn a lot from each other and about the game every time. We have a lot of fun.
That's really cool. Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point ultimately, right? Is to have a good time with a good friend, and the game is obviously the thing you're doing, but it is kind of one excuse to spend some time with a good friend. So I think it makes sense to, you give still a good fight, like you're playing kind of seriously and so on, but at the same time you're playing with your opponent, not against them or like for yourself. You know what I mean? So they're really, to me, there's very much a social side to it. And that's good that you guys have a good time like this. Nice.
But yeah, the campaign was a blast. Thank you guys so much for doing that for us and with us, and hearing how things went on the other end of things was fun.
Is there anything that you would, that could have gone smoother, or is there anything with hindsight you would have done differently other than the rules stuff?
Other than the rules stuff, I don't know. I mean, the story really evolves around the gameplay. So how things turn out with the game is kind of how we've made the direction of the story go. So that'll come out in the wash.
Were there any particular characters who became, heroes or villains of the story?
Yeah, so he has Sergeant Flowers, one of his marauders, is the guy that ended up taking the fall, or was the last remaining leader. So he's the one that's been in captivity. And so he's been captured and taken to some black site probably. So Sergeant Flowers is the Bloodhand commander right now and probably going forward. His stunt bot, the Persistent Turtle, changed hands between a few stunts a couple times. But he's made the stunt bot itself kind of the legend, the hero, the ancestral armor of the Marauders there. And then my commander was Mirko Pratt. He was hurt really bad in the second game, got patched up for the third game, so he's going to have some cyberbionics get chromed up a little bit. And we had Dick Carnegie, who's basically like Pyromancer Batman on the incinerator. So he's probably going to get a promotion. And then Assault Leader Denise Becca, she did really good. And so I'm thinking maybe a few of our people are going to be upgraded a little bit. I've had my eyes on some of those Novashock Peacekeepers for a while. Those look really cool. Get some bigger guns on the Enforcers side.
Oh, they are very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. I think they're the ones that are really good at anti-infantry. So they don't have a load of shots, but then they can end up causing an awful lot of casualties. They're really cool weapons.
Yeah. And maybe some will get upgraded to Pathfinders. And we'll see how things go. I do intend to build up the enforcers some more. Right now, our hobby projects are more Kings of War focused. So I have Forces of the Abyss. My wife is doing the Northern Alliance, and she's already a much better painter than I am. It's wonderful. Every time we go to the game store now, okay, so in TV where there's that comedy trope of like the woman giving birth in the hospital, grabs husband and yells, "You did this to me." That's when we go to hobby stores now and game stores. So she's really excited. She's had a lot of fun, but she's really into the painting and crafting and stuff now. So that's been great to see. And then Ash Walker's doing ogres.
Nice.
Clem's currently got a similar thing going on.
Yeah,
with Sarah, right?
Yes, exactly. And how long has she? So is Mantic kind of the first games system she's seen, or did she do a little bit of 40K as well, or
for Sarah or for my wife?
For your wife, yeah.
Oh no, so she had never played any war games. We've played TTRPGs together, like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, but she's never done a war game. So that'll be her first. And she wasn't super excited for Firefight, but Kings of War fantasy is more her genre of choice. And so also Vikings, she loves the Vikings because we do a lot of fun things with like her Norwegian side of the family. Her grandma came over during like World War II and stuff. So that's been cool.
That's really exciting. Northern Alliance seems like a good choice for ladies getting into tabletop gaming with our very small sample size.
Yeah, I mean, 100% success rates for Northern Alliance and our wives. So I guess next thing you need to do, Chris, is get one for yours. And
100% she will not be joining us. But Mariana, who is our local gaming lady, who's absolutely lovely, she's also doing Northern Alliance. So there you go.
See, 100% out of 3. That's pretty nice.
Oh, I mean, my wife is extremely happy that I play tabletop games and not do anything else crazy, but she just absolutely doesn't like board games or card games or games and tabletop games or video games. So it's just she wants to read a book. She wants to just sit and read a book.
It's not her thing, and
it's
that's
not her thing.
It's totally fair.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely
exactly.
Fair. Yeah, cool. And so, Zach, what's the next step now? Do you plan to do some Firefight games again in the near future, or you said
we'll be playing
more
Firefight again?
Right.
We're gonna try out Dead Zone. I got that book, and so we're gonna be reworking our forces a little bit and do some Dead Zone games. That'll be fun. Maybe do a jailbreak or prison rescue or something along those lines. And then I would like, as for me and my hobby goals, like in the future, sometime I'd like to get Asterians for my daughter because she loves the space elves. And then when Epic comes out, I'm really interested in getting the Plague. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But for the near future, we're gonna try to get some games in here and there, learn how to play Dead Zone. And we'll keep up with Firefight every once in a while. Going to get back to recording soon, so that's going to take up some time. But
fantastic. Yeah. And this is the problem: is so many fantastic games. So much universe, so little time.
I've heard that before.
Yes. And can I ask as well, buddy? Where is it? Are you playing in a local store? Whereabouts is it you're playing?
Yeah, so we play in a couple local stores. We're really blessed to have just a ton of game stores around us. And so we have a lot of opportunities for play. Not everybody does war games, but a few of them do have some terrain, so we can get a little bit of variety jumping around the stores. But yeah, so that's where we play for now. Although for Dead Zone, we do have, and if you're on the Facebook groups, you've seen it before, the little magnet tiles. My daughter's going to play with us with some magnet tiles so we can set those up. They're about the same dimensions as the Shensig cubes for Dead Zone, so that'll be a good proxy. Yeah.
And I was curious also to when you were talking about it. Do you are you guys connected with some other Mantic game players, or not so much, or not yet?
Not as of yet. There is a generic wargaming group that we have on Facebook as well that we've connected to some people. They're a little farther away, maybe an hour away, so we can meet somewhere in the middle. But we've talked about getting into Kings of War with them.
I see. Yeah, because sometimes it's also, I mean, it's really nice to have a very local good buddy that you can meet up with and just play games almost as often as you can, if that makes sense. But then every now and then, opening up a bit more, even though it might take you a bit longer, a longer drive to go someplace. It lets you see different things, or you get different inputs in, or just they play a different faction that you haven't never played against, and just for that, sometimes it's I think it's worth the effort. So it's cool if you have potentially the option to do both. That sounds really nice. So I'm curious to hear what the next stories you guys will come up with for these marauders and these enforcers and. Listen about Dead Zone stuff. Yeah, Chris?
Sorry, Zakama. Yes. And sorry, just while we're on the topic, I mean, it's great you've obviously got several different choices to play. The one thing I found really helped with building the local community was just being consistent. And, people get used to seeing you there playing the same game, or, if you're playing Mantic Games, then it does make a big difference. And that really goes a long way to build trust with people where... maybe they see you there once and go, oh, this looks fun. Oh, well, never mind. But if they see you 3 or 4 times, they can be confident that, oh, this game is sticking around. These guys are sticking around. And you genuinely do get a lot more interest. And once you get, 2-3 people playing, you get the ball rolling, and it's much easier to get in. As Clem's kind of said many times, the 5th and 6th player are quite easy to get in, but it's just getting maybe the first 3 people is the hard bit, if that's what you're looking to do, And
so we do want to grow the community. I would like to someday be like a Pathfinder. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But in the meantime, like when we play, we have some people come and check out the board and ask us questions. And we've had discussions with people. Some people sounded really interested in hey, check out the rule book. Oh, yeah, I really like this about the rules. Yeah, look, I like how they build the armies. Oh, yeah, seems really cool. So that's been fun, just kind of being ambassador for the game a little bit on an unofficial note. But I've talked with game stores hey, you should get Halo, Flashpoint. You should get into Firefight, Dead Zone. These games are growing really fast. Not many carry them right now. It's not very big, but I've been putting bugs in ears.
That's great, buddy. And have you had, when you're playing and you're rolling dice and you're shouting at each other and having a good time, are you getting, are other people expressing an interest? If they got their heads in their 40k book and look up and go, why are these guys making so much noise? Why are they enjoying themselves so much?
A little bit, yeah. We've had some looks. We're into our game, so I won't interpret them. But we've had some people look over and look. Oh, yeah, what's that? Look interested, and I keep the book in plain view. Had the box for a little while, the starter box that I would just just gonna low-key set this up right next to it so people can see what it is. So that was fun. It's not like I have a trifold poster like in 7th grade science class, but it's there.
Yeah, I mean the Mantic has done now the free booklets, and you can ask them, if you ever order something directly from them, or you can order just that from them, and then you get the free booklets that you could keep a few in your gaming bag in a way, and so anytime you're at the store and someone seems to show a tiny bit more interest than the other people, then you can, chat them up quickly and then, give them just a free booklet, and then they can have a quick look. And some people say, oh, that's nice. They have a look while you are playing, and then they give it back, and some just take it home. And sometimes you hear back from them. So I think that's also a good tool to, spread interest about the rule. So for Kings of War and Firefight, weirdly enough, they don't have one for Dead Zone, I think. But Firefight and Kings of War, you definitely have this tool at your disposal if you want. So
I have seen Halo Flashpoint a lot lately, so hopefully we'll see some more in Dead Zone as well. But yeah,
nice. I mean, Halo is Dead Zone. It's a mod of Dead Zone, right? So if you get a good community of Halo players, that means people know the game and the rule set, and probably have a ton of fun with it, and can only be a good thing for Mantic Games in general. So yeah, Good news.
I definitely think people being familiar with the name Mantic will make a big difference, actually. Yeah. Very nice. I was talking, funnily enough, I went to Quest Hub earlier just to drop off a few bits and pieces and see my friend Caleb briefly. And I was just chatting to one of his friends who's an American guy who plays almost exclusively GW games. And there's a group of Americans, and Caleb's the only one that plays non-GW games. But it was interesting having a little chat, and I think this guy is potentially open to trying things that are not 40k. So that was interesting. But yeah, there's a whole world of fun stuff out there if people are willing to give it a go. But yeah, fantastic.
Great. I think that's all we have on the topic, right? So I guess next we need to come up with Panithor campaigns for you guys.
Ooh. Maybe,
perhaps, I suppose, or hear what you guys make of Dead Zone and see if we can do a round 2 of Firefight and Dead Zone campaign and scenarios and so on. Yeah, I think
I'm down. That sounds great.
Yeah, tons of things.
Clem, we actually do 750 points of ambush for Kings of War because obviously they're building their forces, and as well, I always find it a bit weird when you've got 2,300 points of army for Kings of War, and you look at the map, and a bit of me thinks, and I know maybe I shouldn't take it so seriously, it's like, how did our army get all the way over there with the supply lines and through hostile territory, etc.? Whereas obviously the Dead Zone... Magics, yeah, magic. But obviously with Dead Zone and Firefight, it's much easier because everybody has spaceships, and you can. That's a very easy to justify.
It's always easier for me as well. The Warpath universe inspires me a lot more for stories and backgrounds for campaigns. In Panithor, you have to come up with something a bit more elaborate sometimes, or really find a good trick that justifies. Hey, how come salamanders are fighting the Northern Alliance? It's like, just at first glance, it doesn't make sense. Versus marauders fight enforcers. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. So,
money makes the world go round.
Yeah, I really liked the look of the Empire of Dust, but then I was like, well, they're a little bit localized to the desert, aren't they? But I don't know a lot about Panithor, but I'll be learning here. But
yeah, I mean, Northern Alliance and Abyssals makes more sense than Empire of Dust in Northern Alliance, if you want more narrative. So that's a good point. So yeah, cool.
In one of the novels, there were these stones, I forget what they're called, but there were these basically magic stones that meant you can create a portal. And I think there are bigger portals. So, like, for example, if you've got a portable stone, a wizard might have a portable stone in their pocket. They might be able to open up a gateway to move a Vanguard warband. But there may be standing stones that can, Stonehenge, for example, might be able to magic an army across the map,
You can always come up with tons of stuff. I mean, the Empire of Dust, they have necromancers and all sorts of sorcerers and wizards and so on. So most likely they can mess up with things that bring abyssals around, or they can maybe also try to go recover some artifacts and themselves use, expedition force to go grab stuff. You can come up with all sorts of stories, but...
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, us too. I've got one more thing I want to say.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Dear listeners, these guys, including Sarah now too, right? They do a great job. They're so fun to listen to and are wonderful people and gamers, and they use paid services to bring you a quality podcast. So if you want to show your thanks, check out their Patreon. They're not paying me to say this. I just generally mean it. If you have a spare coin, this lot are just going to put it back into making great stuff for our community. I'll shill for you guys. Neither of us like shilling for ourselves.
That's so sweet of you, buddy. Thank you very much. That's really nice. Very sweet of you. Fantastic. Well, guys, just keep enjoying the games, and we'll do something else soon.
Sounds great.
Yeah, sounds good to me too. And talk to you next time.
So much universe, so little time.